Welcome to the deep dive. So you've shared some really interesting material with us from Nonprofit Professional Services, NPPSS,
That's them. Yeah, NPPSS.
about how they approach retirement planning. And what we really want to do today is kind of, cut through the jargon and get to the core of their thinking.
Right.
Especially this idea of looking at retirement through, well, the lens of potential risks, not just, investment returns.
Exactly. The stuff you sent over, the website excerpts, it makes it pretty clear. Their philosophy is, well, it's a bit different from the usual way people think about retirement planning.
Oh, so.
Well, instead of starting with, okay, what's the absolute best investment mix? Hmm. They seem to be asking, what could actually stop your investments from giving you the retirement you want?
Ah, okay.
It's about spotting the roadblocks first.
Right, right. It's almost like they're asking us to, I don't know, flip the script. Most of us think, okay, balance the portfolio,
Yeah, stocks, bonds.
mutual funds maybe,
Yeah.
and just hope the market does its thing. But NPPSS sounds like they're saying, hold on a sec. What are the really big threats? The ones that could sink even a portfolio that's doing okay.
Yeah, that core idea they have, start with the end in mind. It really emphasizes this different approach
So for everyone listening, it's less about just how your money grows.
and more about what could stop it.
Exactly. What could stop that growth from actually delivering the retirement you imagine? It's like playing defense just as much as offense.
And it's interesting how they set that against, you know, the more conventional advice. You always hear about asset allocation, diversification.
The usual buzzwords, right?
And look, MPPSS probably wouldn't say those aren't important, but
Mhm.
they're adding this really crucial layer on top, understanding and actually dealing with the specific risks you'll face in retirement.
Okay, and one of the biggest risks they flag right off the bat is taxes.
Yep, taxes.
Now, we all know about taxes, obviously, but I think maybe a lot of us don't fully get the long-term hit on our retirement savings.
Especially if you've been dutifully putting money into traditional IRAs or 401k.
Right. NPPSS points out that all that growth that happened tax deferred. Well, it's going to get taxed eventually when you take it out.
That's a really key point they make. You get the tax break now with those counts,
Feels good now.
but you're basically making a deal to pay the tax man down the road. NPPSS is saying, hey, really think about what that future tax bill might look like.
And how it could, take a bite out of your income then.
For sure. They even shared a testimonial, someone saying they saved thousands of dollars in taxes by working with them.
Wow.
It definitely makes you pause and think about the tax side of your current strategy, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, so they've highlighted potential dangers, taxes being a big one. What's their roadmap then? How do they suggest navigating this?
Their site mentions a three-step process for risk management. Let's dig into that.
Okay.
Step one is creating an individual risk profile. What's that about?
So this first step, it's all about personalization. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
No cookie-cutter plans. Exactly. They start by really getting into your specific situation, asking questions, looking at your finances to figure out the risks that you are most likely to face when you retire.
Okay.
And what's interesting is they then take those risks they've identified, figure out the potential impact, and actually score them.
Score them, like rank them.
Yeah, rank or score them. It helps bring clarity, so you can see which risks need the most attention for you.
That makes a lot of sense. You can't really fix problems if you haven't clearly identified them first. So once you've got this personalized risk profile, what's step two? Protection planning.
Right, protection plan, this is where you work together, focusing on those risks that scored highest, the big concerns.
Gotcha.
NPPSS helps you look at different ways, different strategies to manage those risks effectively.
Oh, weird.
And they kind of boil down risk management into three main ways you can handle a risk.
Three ways. Okay, what are they?
You can assume the risk, basically accept it and its potential consequences. You can share the risk, often with like an insurance company, or you could transfer the risk entirely.
Okay, assume, share, transfer. Could you maybe give a quick example of how those might work in retirement planning?
Sure, absolutely. So assuming risk, maybe you acknowledge the market might dip, but you figure, okay, I've got enough time to recover, so you just accept that possibility.
Okay, you write it out.
Exactly. Sharing risk could be, say, buying an annuity that guarantees income for life. You're sharing the risk of outliving your money with the insurance company.
Okay.
And transferring risk. A classic example is long-term care insurance. You pay premiums to transfer the potentially huge financial risk of needing long-term care over to the insurer.
That's actually a really clear way to categorize it. Assume, share, transfer. Okay, so we've ID'd the risks. We've looked at managing them. What's the last step in that process?
Step 3 is implementation and timeline. And here, NPPSS really stresses acting sooner rather than later.
Getting started early matters.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Their point is the earlier you start tackling these potential risks, the more choices you generally have, and potentially the less it costs to manage them.
Right. Locking in protection can be cheaper when you're younger or healthier.
Exactly. And they suggest that by planning strategically for these risks, you can actually get closer to what they call a worry-free retirement.
Worry-free retirement.
Sounds nice.
Yeah.
It definitely sounds like a very proactive way to handle something that, let's be honest, many of us probably think about reactively, or maybe not enough at all.
That's probably fair to say for a lot of people, yeah.
Now, NPPSS specifically zooms in on what they call the 5 financial hazards inherent in retirement. What are those main areas they focus on?
Okay, these are the big 5 threats they see as having the biggest potential impact on your retirement security.
Let's hear.
First, taxes, we talked about that. Then market volatility, the ups and downs of investments, inflation, how your money loses buying power over time.
The silent killer.
Longevity, which is actually the risk of living longer than your savings last. And finally, long-term illness, which can bring really big unexpected healthcare costs. Taxes, market volatility, inflation, longevity, long-term illness. Okay, so their risk assessment consultation is built around these 5 hazards.
That's right. And part of that consultation, as you mentioned, involves rating each one 0 to 5 based on the need for action.
0 to 5. Need for action.
Yeah. And then, naturally, they prioritize dealing with the risks that get the highest ratings first.
That rating system sounds like it gives you a clear roadmap. Okay, this is where my biggest potential problems lie.
Precisely. It moves it from just being vaguely aware of these things to knowing, okay, for me, inflation and longevity risk are rated a 4 or 5. I need to focus there. It makes it specific.
The website also talks about a phase called Start My Consultation Analysis and Recommendations. What goes on there?
Okay, so this is where they start putting things down, sort of pen to paper. MPPSS presents an initial draft plan, like a concept for your retirement.
An initial idea.
Yeah, but the key thing is it's not set in stone. Not at all. They work with you to shape it, refine it.
Make sure it fits.
Exactly. Make sure it lines up with your goals, deals with those risks you identified, and ultimately helps you get the kind of retirement lifestyle you actually want. They really stress it's collaborative.
So you can tweak it, make adjustments.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Until you're completely comfortable with the plan.
And then after that collaboration, there's the Analyze My Plan implementation phase.
Yeah, simple enough. Once you've landed on the strategies that make sense for you, this is where they finalize the details and actually put the plan into motion.
Making it happen.
Turning the plan into reality, basically.
Those testimonials on their site do a good job of showing how this works out for real people. Like that one person who said NPPSS found potential issues they hadn't even thought about.
Yeah, I saw that one.
And that the changes are expected to save them thousands of dollars in taxes. That's pretty significant.
It really is. And someone else mentioned the convenience factor, right? Working with online meetings, making it painless, even if you're super busy.
That's a big deal these days.
For sure. And they also talked about being impressed with the financial tools and feeling better knowing they might have tax-free retirement funds and maybe didn't need to worry so much about outliving their money.
Yeah.
Those real stories, they definitely highlight the benefits of this kind of risk-first thinking in practice.
It really feels like a central theme from NPPSS is, don't wait. Acting early is key. They even have that section, Act Now for a Confident Tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They clearly want people to get that the sooner you start planning for and dealing with these potential problems, the better positioned you'll likely be for a secure retirement.
It's about grabbing the reins, being proactive.
Yeah, taking control and hopefully getting that peace of mind that comes from having a solid strategy.
And for anyone listening right now who's thinking, this risk-first idea sounds interesting, NPPSS does offer a free consultation, right?
They do, yeah.
And they gave specific contact info for Southern California. It's tom@nppss.com. The phone is +1 8005 684 0109. Plus an option to sign up for updates too.
Good info to have. So, as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, what do you see as the main takeaway for listeners from all this NPPSS material?
I think for me, the really big message is the value in shifting your perspective, maybe, taking that risk-first approach to retirement planning.
Instead of just chasing returns.
Exactly. Instead of just focusing on investment performance, they're really pushing us to identify and then actively manage those 5 key financial hazards we listed.
taxes, market volatility, inflation, longevity, and long-term illness.
Right. It's about building a plan that's more resilient, one that can hopefully handle some bumps in the road.
Yeah, it's not that investments don't matter. Obviously, they do. But their philosophy seems to be that understanding and tackling these underlying risks, that should be the foundation, the bedrock of a solid, sustainable retirement plan.
Makes sense. So for you, listening right now, here's maybe something to chew on. When you think about those five financial hazards, taxes, market volatility, inflation, longevity, long-term illness, which one or maybe two do you personally feel could be the biggest threat to your retirement down the line?
Good question to ask yourself.
And maybe the follow-up is, how sure are you really that your current retirement strategy actually has solid answers for those specific risks? Definitely something worth some thought.